Yes!
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist. Sonic. My god, this little critter is great, but hated at the same time, and vice versa. It's a situation where we don't really know what a Sonic game is anymore. Now, I feel like the best Sonic game in recent years has been Sonic Generations. However, I don't really consider that a brand new Sonic game so much as it's a celebration of everything about Sonic. I've done Sonic 2, I've done Sonic 3, I've done Adventure 2, I've done Heroes, so I thought let's go into the weird territory. I've done Sonic 06. Let's go into the weird territory. Let's go into weird territory of Sonic Spinball, or Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball. Sonic the Hedgehog put Sega on the map, without a doubt. The popularity of the franchise was so immense that Sega was able to rival the likes of Nintendo for an entire decade. The little blue hedgehog was Sega's ultimate meal ticket, so when Sonic the Hedgehog 3 began development in 1992, it became Sonic Team's most ambitious project ever. But it turned out to be a little bit too ambitious. See, Sonic 3 was slated for a Christmas '93 release, but it eventually had to be delayed and even split into two games. While Sonic Team bit off a bit more than they could actually chew, masses of rabid Sonic fans were chomping at the bit for another Sonic game under their Christmas trees. So, Sega conceived of two smaller Sonic titles to fill the void. One of them was the puzzler, Doctor Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and the other was Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball, or Sonic Spinball. At the time, Sega's marketing team somehow got the impression that the Casino Zone from Sonic 2 was the most popular with fans, which is astounding when you consider that that level is the spawn of Satan. Nevertheless, what we got was a brand new Sonic game built completely around these very same pinball mechanics. Thanks! Maybe, perhaps, I don't know, thank you, I guess? If you played Sonic Spinball back in the day, then you probably remember it as I do. Depressingly hard. I don't even really have any memories of any level beyond the first one, since I don't think I actually ever beat it. I remember the game being brutal, confusing, and a disappointing departure from Sonic's platforming roots. But I'm grown up now, and I recognize that sometimes you have to mature a bit before you can appreciate some things. Now, I'm really willing to give this game a chance without bias. It may have been too much for Kid Gerard, but I should be able to handle this no problem.
It's gonna be awful. You're gonna hate it.
Little me? What are you talking about?
Nothing will erase the pain of all the terribly unfair games I've played.
Jeez, guy. Have some faith, my dude. Games get better. I promise.
Every game is the devil in my time.
Alright, so we are right here in the middle of some shit. This game just opens up in the middle of Sonic and Tails' siege on Robotnik's Island, which, according to the game manual, is known as the Veg-O Fortress. Just take a second. Veg-O Fortress. And, according to my eyes, looks a lot like the Riddler's lair from Batman Forever. Good job there, Jim Carrey. Unfortunately, it looks like Robotnik is, once again, transforming little woodland creatures into his cyber servants. Sonic and Tails do their best to avoid Robotnik's cannon fire, but they take a hit and Sonic takes the plunge. As Tails flies to safety, Sonic slowly descends into the ocean's depths. And the next time we see him, he's heroically jumping out of the water into the caves beneath the fortress, ready to navigate through the pinball labyrinth, free the little animals, collect the Chaos Emeralds that power the whole base, and bring Robotnik down. The story. Guess what? Basically non-existent, and the premise is the same as always. Robotnik's touching animals he shouldn't be touching, and Sonic's gonna slap him around here and there. But something doesn't feel right. I don't think Sonic made it to the Veg-O Fortress. I don't think Sonic made it out of the ocean at all, actually. I think Sonic drowned. I mean, look at this. He's drowning. The question is, are we witnessing Sonic's personal heaven, or his personal hell? Sonic died, you guys. He died for your sins. Sonic Spinball comes across like one of those weird bootleg games that you'd play on a Hackintosh back in the day. I'm not saying that the game is of poor quality or anything, I'm just saying that it doesn't really seem like a Sonic game, which makes sense when you consider its completely different mechanics. But the whole game still feels like it was made by pretenders to the throne rather than Sonic Team themselves. For example, the game's entire soundscape seems just the tiniest bit off. The soundtrack possesses enough funk to be worthy of the Sega Genesis, but it definitely doesn't sound like the Sonic the Hedgehog music we know. The memorable composition and intricate instrumentation associated with Sonic music just aren't present. Instead, the game's soundtrack sounds like a generic Genesis game. In fact, I think you could put this music on top of other Genesis games, and it would work. Yeah, that works. The sound effects and the audio mixing also sound strange. Just listen to that. It's like they didn't even have access to any of the franchise's previous assets when making this game. And sometimes certain audio cues are too loud and jarring compared to the rest of the mix. Like this sea monster robot from the first level. Oh, Jesus, that's loud. One thing that Sonic Spinball has in common with its predecessors is its visually and thematically distinct levels. You've got sewers, steamworks, and even power plants. I just wish that the areas within each level were more distinct from one another. At a certain point, sectors within any given level will start to look too much alike, making it easy to lose track of your progress. A simple shift in color palette as you'd advance would be an easy fix. Sonic himself looks pretty good, and some of his new animations are great, like this one of him pulling himself up into a ledge. It's just too bad that the frame rate is far worse than what I expect from a Sonic game. It feels like playing a PC game on a toaster from 1990. But maybe all these issues aren't the game having a worse design than other Sonic titles, just a different one.
I told you there's no hope.
It's hard to tell. You know, I'm not giving up on this game quite yet, dude.
My consoles were nothing but fonts of misery.
It's a pinball game, my dudes, with a pinch of platforming thrown in. Just like a real pinball game, your buttons control the flippers. But the biggest difference between Sonic Spinball and traditional pinball is your ability to slightly influence Sonic's direction with the D-pad when he's flying in ball form. That and all the robots flying around. Advancing through the game is all about hitting the right targets. When you start a level, you're usually locked inside a small area, but more sectors will open up if you manage to knock down the right barriers, bust through certain walls, or shoot yourself through well-hidden chutes. Hitting these targets will also help you by providing safety nets below certain drop zones, just in case you mess up, and by allowing you to access the hidden Chaos Emeralds throughout the game. Collecting these emeralds in each level is the only way to face the bosses, but the emeralds, which are all blue for some reason, and number far more than 7, are usually pretty well hidden and require precise placement of Sonic in order to be grabbed. Just like with real pinball, you don't have that much influence over where your ball's going to be most of the time. Even though you can slightly alter his trajectory with the D-pad, once you hit Sonic with those bumpers, Jesus takes the wheel, which means that it can take a lot of tries before Sonic goes where you actually want him to go. The times when you do get to control Sonic in a more traditional fashion are pretty rare, and when they do occur, they don't last very long. Aside from walking and jumping, the only other move he can perform is his patented spin dash, which is useful from time to time to regain some speed. I may be all grown up, but I still manage to get lost in this game from time to time. Not only do many areas look too alike, but it's also easy to lose track of just what you're trying to accomplish at any given moment. The confusion is such a problem that the developers had to include a message board at the top of the screen to tell you what to do. I know handholding is commonplace in games nowadays, but Sonic Spinball is from 1993. The fact that the game includes a dedicated space for literally spelling out what the player is supposed to do next is a testament to just how counterintuitive your progression can be. Some of the messages can be kind of comical though. Smell my socks. Now before you all freak out, yes, all pinball games have these message boards, and that's not what I'm criticizing. I'm talking about the fact that in Sonic Spinball, you have to progress through the levels like they're an adventure stage, but there's no clear way to tell that to the player, so that's where said handholding is implemented. And based on that, you can kind of tell that it doesn't quite work exactly as you'd imagine. The game doesn't have enemies so much as it has obstacles that impede Sonic's advancement. They can't really hurt you as you're almost always in ball form, but they can definitely knock you towards places you don't want to go, such as towards the stuff that can hurt you, like toxic waste, bottomless pits, and loud-ass God damn it, every time, I hate that sound effect. The bosses are exceedingly simple and require virtually identical strategies. Shoot up to their location and bounce around until they die. But unlike the bosses in other Sonic games, these aren't machines piloted by Robotnik. These things are more like horrible Robotnik monstrosities. That's one piece of evidence suggesting that our friend Sonic is indeed in hell. There are little pinball minigames between each level too. They all involve having to hit specific targets before you hit your main target, which is usually some version of Robotnik. They're more traditional pinball games within a pinball game. The breaking gameplay styles is appreciated, but any other type of game would have been more appreciated. Pinball gameplay is, in my opinion, a bit repetitive. So when you add unforgiving controls and environments to the mix, it doesn't really make things any better. Sonic Spinball is still somewhat fun, especially since the game only has 4 levels. But there are better pinball games out there, and there are damn sure better Sonic games out there as well.
Sounds like you're giving up.
Think again, little me. Think again. Sonic has managed to collect enough Chaos Emeralds within the Veggio Fortress to destabilize it. I'm sorry, I'm still focusing on the fact that it's called Veggio Fortress, causing it to sink into the sea. But crafty old Robotnik uses his built-in spacecraft to fly out of there. Sonic is still along for the ride, and after making his way to the top of the fortress, Sonic busts into Robotnik's ship. The final boss fight is very, very similar to the other boss fights in the game. You've got to shoot Sonic to the upper part of the arena and bounce him off of Robotnik to damage him. But this time, Robotnik has several defense systems in place to prevent our hero from reaching him. He's got mechanical arms and weird windsocks that will toss Sonic aside. And, if you're not careful, right out of the boss arena altogether. It sucks to have to climb all the way back up the fortress, so it's best to play it safe and avoid these defenses. To deactivate them, you'll have to occasionally hit the button directly beneath Robotnik. Hitting it enough times will temporarily get rid of his toys, but I still have no idea how you're supposed to know when you deactivated them all, since you can't see that far above you when you're hitting the button. But once you think it's safe, shoot up there and give him the business. Once you hit him 10 times, he bites the dust. After busting up his escape rocket, both Sonic and Robotnik fall toward the Earth. But only Sonic gets caught by Tails, who's repaired his plane. Sonic gives us a sly thumbs up as his nemesis sinks into the ocean and then explodes. Gee, things sure wrapped up nicely, didn't they? A bit too nicely if you ask me. Sleep well, Sonic. May flights of multi-tailed foxes wing thee to thy rest. Sonic's dead, you guys. What the Now, there are no unlockables to speak of in Sonic Spinball, technically because it's such a short game.
Of course not. That would actually be fun.
Let me finish. But there are some cool tidbits here and there. The game features a level select code that can be accessed by hitting a certain combination in the right order. If you entered it correctly, you'll hear a sound effect and can select which level to play in from the start menu.
Guess that's kind of cool.
See? There's also a hidden multi-ball mode that can be only accessed by collecting every ring in any given level. After you do so, there will be a sparkling ring hidden somewhere in that level you can jump into to access the multi-ball game. The multi-ball sequences are a lot like the bonus levels in the main game, except with the chaos of tons of balls.
I want to play.
Now you're getting it, little me.
I still hate vegetables.
Hey, man. Me too, man. Sonic Spinball is not the Sonic game I would choose if I wanted to revisit a classic. It's not nearly as hard or as confusing as I remember it to be, but it still has its issues. The controls can be quite frustrating, and the level layout is so unfortunate that playing the game often feels like a chore. But altogether, in my playthrough of Sonic Spinball, there were 7 deaths, 4 stages, 4 bonus stages, and 4 bosses busted, 16 Chaos Emeralds collected, 2.5 hours of total playtime, a nice change of pace if you ask me, countless animals rescued, and 1 tasteful obituary for Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic Spinball actually wasn't as bad as I remember it to be. After all, there were no grueling collectathons or soul-crushing achievements to worry about. As long as you go into this game looking to have just a little bit of fun and are willing to accept that you have little to no control over your fate, then you might just have a pretty good time. Sonic Spinball was the game that when I was a kid, I was obsessed with it. I was playing it all the time, renting it from Blockbuster over and over and over again until I beat it, and I never did. Now that I'm older and I know how to complete games really well, I finally beat it here, and man, I'm angry. It's 4 stages. It's hard to control Sonic. The best thing about the game is the literal first level soundtrack. That first song, that boom, ba-ba-da-boop, ba-boop, ba-da, boom, da-ba-da-boop, ba-doop-ba-doop. That is the best redeeming thing that I relate to in this game. Everything else is kind of just a mess. I'm sorry, guys, but this one and I don't blend so well together. With that in mind, I give this game my completionist rating of look at it.
Look at it!
That's all the time we have for today, guys, so please, as always, let us know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. Question of the day, what's your favorite Sonic game? For those of you who are going to be all funny and put Sonic 06, no. Try again, it's a tech demo, not a game. Tech demo, not a game. Just saying. Now, if you excuse me, let's hear more of that sweet rockin' bass. I hate that sea monster. That thing is the worst.